Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Culture Books podcast. It is episode 26 of season 3, in which we are coming to the end of the book Use of Weapons. My name is John. I'm joined by
Sheridan.
And it is the 4th of February, 2025. A bit terrifying we're in 2025, but here
in February.
We go. Yeah, and what a terrifying year it's turning out to be. So, from the world we currently live in being terrifying, let's go visit an even worse one.
I don't know. Well, maybe this one is. Maybe this specific chapter is worse.
So, Sheridan, do you want to tell us what happens next in this show?
You have 30 seconds to recount the book thus far, or where we're at.
Okay, count me
You've got
in.
to sort of choose what side of the book you want, because there's 2 books in one here.
It's really just one book, but count me in.
2 stories in one. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so Sheridan Zakalwe is a warlord in the pay of the culture, a galactic civilization. They have been pushing him in this side of the narrative going forward to visit a cluster in space where he can hopefully avert a war. They've lined him up to try and guide one side to victory. At the end of the last chapter, they say, you know what, we don't actually want that side to win anymore. And he is meant to be leaving. Okay, now Sheridan, you have 30 seconds to tell us what happens in this chapter. And your time starts in 3, 2, 1.
Zakalwe's in the middle of a war. He's leading a war or a battle. He's calling up for some commands for the battle. Shaves his head, don't know why. Then he remembers some things about his other times in battle. And then he walks around in the battle, watching the carnage going towards some of his fellow soldiers, I think. And then it ends.
3, 2, 1. Okay.
Is that right?
You're not technically wrong on anything, but we'll go through the nuance.
I don't love the fight. I don't love the fighting scenes. They don't do it for me that much.
Sure. So we had the classic Banksian cold open, which people must be sick of us referring to, but let's go again. Where they lay, the discarded robes looked like the just shed skin of some exotic reptile. He had been going to wear those, but then changed his mind. He would wear the clothes he had come here in. So for me, this opening bit where he's still in his suite, this is a heavy nod to, the hotel scene in Apocalypse Now, where Martin Sheen has a heart attack on camera while, cogitating on the nature of war.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm picking up a
Yep.
lot of that. And there's also, with the head shaving, there's a bit of Mr. Kurtz here as well, or Colonel Kurtz here, I reckon. And then so we do have, there's a whole school of use of weapons fans who try and keep track of Zakalwe's haircuts to figure out where they are in the narrative. But I think Zakalwe is capable of cutting his hair and regrowing it multiple times in his many hundreds of years of life, so I'm not sure I completely buy into that. Anyway, there is this description here. He swept the razor past the tops of his ears, then took up a towel, wiped the gleaming skin of his skull, inspecting the baby-smooth landscape he had revealed. The long dark hair lay scattered on the floor like plumage scattered during a fight. I mean, this is obvious trauma. When men or women suddenly change their haircut dramatically, it's frequently because they're going through something, right?
True. Well, almost that applies to women as well.
I said men or women, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. And there's 2 bits here that are next to each other. We're going to do them slightly separately. The air moved over his shaven skull, feeling very strange. He missed the feel and sweep of his hair on the nape of his neck. He sat on the bed, pulled on the shoes and clasped them, then looked at the telephone sitting on the bedside cabinet. He lifted the device. So
why is he shaving his head?
Because he's going through a trauma. He spent months trying to win this war. He was on the brink of winning it, and suddenly the culture turns up and says, no, we're pulling the rug out from under you, you're going to lose. He sent people to their death. He's demanded immense sacrifice of people. He's been through all the trauma of war, and now it turns out he was on the wrong side and it's all for nothing.
And he decides that the response here is to shave his head but keep the same clothes on.
No, put the clothes on that he'd arrived in, as if he's going.
Oh, that he arrived to the planet.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Sorry. I thought it meant to the room.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Sometimes I take things a little too literally.
Sure. Let's just get into this next paragraph, because this is, for me, the purpose of this chapter. He recalled, he seemed to remember, contacting the spaceport last night after Smar and Scaff and Amtiskor had gone. He had been feeling bad, disassociated and remote somehow, and he was not at all certain he really did remember calling the technicians there, but he thought he probably had. He'd told them to ready the ancient spacecraft for the decapitation strike sometime that morning. Or he hadn't. One of the two. Maybe he had been dreaming. Now, this is deep trauma for a battlefield commander to not be sure what orders he's given.
Yes.
And absolutely terrifying for everyone in the chain of command.
Yeah.
So there's another chapter here that I wanted to read, and I'm going to, because of where we're at here. He watched the skies outside the window. They still look dark from inside here. Sir, the chief flight engineer said, Sir Zakalwe, what are your orders, sir? And then we've got a flashback to when he was on the spaceship that was a relatively recent chapter, in the deep sleep spaceship with the people in sleep.
Yeah.
He saw the little blue cube, the button. He heard the whisper of escaping air. There was a shudder just then. He thought it was his own body reacting involuntarily, but it was not. The shudder ran through the fabric of the citadel, through the walls of the room, through the bed beneath him. Glass rattled in the room. The noise of the explosion rumbled through the air beyond the thick windows, low and unsettling. So it's an interesting way to write something as dramatic as an explosion in this sort of languorous, detached, feverish tone that Zakalwe is obviously going through. And then his conversation with this poor technician. Sir, do we go ahead? He heard a man say, or remembered a man saying from long ago and far away. And he had said yes, and taken a terrible cargo of memories and all the names that might bury him.
It's a good line.
Yep. But so this business about remembering, this isn't remembering what happened last night. This is remembering somewhere in his origin trauma.
The chair.
Possibly the chair, yes. And then, then he decides, look, stand down. We don't need the strike now. He's basically thinking, okay, our side's not going to win this war, so what's the point in killing more people?
But how do you know he's thinking that?
Well, he calls off the strike.
So he could just be like don't
what?
want to waste money.
What money?
I don't know. Like, how do you know that's what he's thinking?
Well, because he's got an option to kill a lot of people, basically wipe out the capital city of the opposing empire. And he decides in the end not to. But, the explosions have started and he knows that the cultures come in on the other side. So I feel that it's well within
Inferred.
Capable of inference from the text that he's just... And I think this is almost as big a moment as, in Lord of the Rings where Galadriel turns down the ring. And in that moment atones for her past indiscretions, and this is Zakalwe deciding he's not going to do the incredibly violent thing just because he can.
But do you think he's really demonstrated that he's incredibly violent for the sake of it? I don't think he's really demonstrated that.
I think there's been, I'm particularly thinking when he's in the seaside town and just starts fighting people. Obviously, the girl had been raped and things, but he was pretty brutally violent in that.
He was, but it wasn't for the sake of it.
There was a
bit of retribution.
But the retribution wasn't really for what had happened there. It was just because he really wanted to wail on someone.
Yeah, you might be right.
And there are other moments where he indulges in hyperviolence for the.
He is violent,
he can.
but
yeah, well, he's been bred and formed and shaped to be violent, but in this moment he does choose not to be, which I feel is a moment of development for him.
So is this where the title comes in because he didn't use the weapons?
The title has multiple folds, but I'd say that's got one. Yeah. In fact, not using the weapon can sometimes be the weapon itself.
Yeah.
More explosions shook the citadel, dislodging dust around him as the curtain wall was breached and breached again. He wondered how it would be with the regional headquarters, how they would fall, and whether the raid to capture the high priest would be as bloodless as Smar had hoped. But he realised, even as he thought about it, that he no longer really cared. And then he wanders off to do his little Henry V style tour of the troops as the line collapses.
Yeah.
And then I did like this little line here. He wondered what sort of ammunition the tank was firing. Not a type they'd had until this morning, he suspected, which is getting to the culture suddenly delivering technology to the other team. And then as things start really going wrong, I like this line. Suddenly aircraft screamed overhead, tearing through the air over the curtain wall, dropping long canisters into the tents, which erupted in flame and black smoke. He saw people burning, heard the screams, smelled the roasting flesh. He shook his head. That really reminds me of some of those scenes out of Gaza in the last year.
Wasn't that? It's just war in an urban environment, right?
Yeah, but remember when the people in the plastic tents outside the hospital got bombed? I mean, that was a particularly horrific one. That was a very close match to this. Still people rushing past, soldiers shouting. He saw one take aim at him and could not see anywhere to go for cover. He raised his hand to explain, to say there really was no need, but the man shot him anyway. Not a very good shot considering the range, he thought as he was kicked back and spun round by the force of the impact. Upper chest, near the shoulder, no lung damage, possibly not even a chipped rib, he thought as the shock and pain burst through him and he fell. I mean, at this point, Zakalwe is quite the connoisseur of pain, isn't he?
He is, yeah. In fact, I'd actually forgotten he got shot. He just sort of rolls with it. This one seems to have taken him down for a little bit. But...
Yeah, and I mean, he's walking around using a tent pole as a crutch as it advances. He's getting progressively messed up, and I did like that just last little scene sort of covered well the just the random brutal violence of these situations. There's an enemy soldier, he's going to shoot you. He doesn't know who you are, he doesn't care who you are. You're wearing the wrong uniform and you're going to get shot. Moving over a little further, he lay a while longer, then got up. It wasn't too difficult to walk at first, but then the planes came back again, and though he didn't get hit by a bullet, something splintered somewhere nearby as he passed by some tents that shook and rippled as the bullets hit them, and he wondered if the sharp puncturing pain in his thigh was a bit of wood or stone, or even bone, from somebody in one of the tents. No, he muttered to himself as he limped away, heading for the biggest breach in the wall. No, not funny, not bone, not funny. So that's a flashback to when a chunk of dark ends ended up in his chest.
I didn't pick that up, actually. But...
Oh, okay. There's a lot of callbacks in this one. And then his wounds talked to him in the languages of pain and damage, and he had to listen to them, but paid them no further heed. He was shaken and pummeled and tripped and stumbled and drained and fell to his knees and thought perhaps he was hit by more bullets, but was no longer sure. And then just as a tank enthusiast, I had to put this in. Listening to the tanks as they came crunching up through the slope of wrecked stones reflected that, like tanks everywhere, they squeaked more than they roared.
Is that true?
I would say modern tanks don't squeak so much anymore. Yeah. But certainly World War II and early Cold War vintage tanks used to have little blocks that if the pins were coming loose from the tracks, they'd just smack against the block and get smacked back in. And that gave them that clank, 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 clank sound. The tracks do squeak a lot too, but very much, as someone who's listened to a lot of tank noises, it depends on the tank.
So why is he making a Z sign? Is it Zakalwe?
Yeah, Z for Zakalwe. But
so the culture comes and gets him.
That's the last.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were
chapter.
right there.
No. No, we've got, in fact, the headline quote from the entire book coming up in the next paragraph. And also he's talking to the sky again. Remember when he got raped and had his tendons cut and left for dead? He started talking to the sky.
Oh, yeah.
And also I think he was trying to make a letter that was very complicated out of the mud in the river. So that's a big throwback here there. But I'm going to read this paragraph and then we're going to discuss it. This is I mean, literally when we were putting the show together, this was one of the 4 quotes we used in the introduction episode. "Gentlemen," he whispered to the rabid blue sky, "I am reminded of something that the worshipful Smar said to me once on the subject of heroism, which was something like, 'Zakalwe, in all the human societies we have ever reviewed, in every age and every state, there has seldom, if ever, been a shortage of eager young males prepared to kill and die to preserve the security, comfort, and prejudices of their elders. And what you call heroism is just an expression of this simple fact: there is never a scarcity of idiots.'" He sighed. Well, no doubt she didn't say every age and every state because the culture just loves there to be exceptions to everything. But that was the gist of it, I think.
Do you really think that's a fair assessment? I mean, those people are idiots. There's lots of smart people that die for, like, security, comfort, and their elders.
You look at the world and the state it's in right now with the gerontocracies leading us into war, and you do question whether if all the young people just said, you know what, stuff you, we're not going to do it.
I don't think those young people would fight for that, though, in the same way they have in the past.
They're doing it in Ukraine right now.
But they're fighting for something different.
And, you know, young Americans have gone to war for the last 20 years doing nothing but preserving the security, comfort, and prejudices of their elders.
Anyway, I just don't think it's fair to say that those people are idiots. All of them. Definitely lots of them are.
It doesn't say they're all idiots. It says there's never a scarcity of idiots. But
that implies that those people are idiots.
It implies to recruit large numbers of them, you need a lot of idiots, is what it's saying.
I think that's a bit unfair.
It might well be a bit unfair, but as someone who's been to a lot more memorial services than you have, I find myself very sympathetic to it in the
Well, they never call them idiots in those memorials.
No, they don't, because they're trying to make sure they can recruit more.
Yes.
And in fact, they run the services at great expense to make sure they can recruit more.
True.
At the same time, you know, a woman I respect a lot, a former boss of mine, once said to me, you know, oh, if only women were in charge, we wouldn't have any more wars. And I looked at her and said, the women are plenty bloodthirsty as well. Is there any other takeaways you had from that pivotal paragraph?
No.
Except you think fighting to preserve the privileges of the elders is a good idea.
I didn't say it was a good idea.
Possibly
I
because
just
you're becoming an elder yourself at this point.
No, I didn't say it was a good idea. I just said that the people that fight for the protection of the society that they're in aren't necessarily idiots.
I would also say, having, you know, I worked for a year at the Australian War Memorial writing a lot of copy on these things. A unifying theme of so many soldiers in the world wars was they were trying to escape crushing poverty.
Well, but maybe if we got invaded tomorrow by China,
yeah,
like literal, like on the bloody beaches of Bondi,
we're more likely to be invaded by the US. But go on.
Anyway, I'm just saying, I wouldn't be saying that the people that are going out there to defend it are idiots.
No, but
there's definitely be idiots in the cohort, but that's just the nature of like the number of idiots per capita.
Sure, but those sorts of wars of national defence are extremely rare. And certainly our wars tend to be expeditionary and taking the pain somewhere else.
Yeah, but I'm just saying. I just think it's not.
It's mostly not for the benefit of the people who fight the war.
I'm just saying I don't think it's fair to call them all idiots.
Okay. Sheridan the warmonger. And so finally we come to the end of the chapter, and he staggers around and he's trying to find the module that he'd seen over his apartments. And the final paragraph: it was some time before they spotted the Z sign he had made from the bodies on top of the walls. But in that language, it was complicated letter, and he kept getting it mixed up. So no ships, only one character.
I thought there was reference to the xenophobe.
Was there?
They would probably intercept the spacecraft. The culture itself, the xenophobe probably would use effectors on it.
Yes.
The decapitation strike was bound to fail.
Yeah, that was part of the reason why I decided not to do it.
So, I mean, I don't think we could say it's a good ship because it doesn't do anything.
And the only thing it might have done was make sure that the other team wins. But
there's no other characters.
I mean, you do also have the thing that to what this, what is it, an ecclesiarchy? Or anyway, there's this empire of the priests with their predilection for, let's say, young men, hoping that that's where the dividing line falls, is, I guess, it was certainly painted in an ugly light as not necessarily the most progressive or great society for Zakalwe to be trying to support in the first place.
Mm.
So I guess there's only one character in this as well, unless
That's
you count
right.
the sky.
So yeah, you can't.
Possibly the technician.
True, actually.
He's done his job.
Yeah, he was probably like, what is going on here?
He's like, we've been up all night getting this thing ready to go.
You do it too. You just shaved your head.
Yeah,
You're not even dressed.
You having a nervous breakdown? Well, that was on the phone, so at least you can see.
True.
So, isn't it funny how we've actually now reached a point as a society where video calling is the norm?
Oh, I know. Sometimes when I'm like, do a video call, maybe I should just do a phone call, and then they put their camera on, and you're like, oh God, I got to get it on now.
Yeah. Yeah. And we always thought people wouldn't want to do video calls because they wouldn't want people seeing what their house looked like or whether they had makeup on or not. And here we are, we're just putting up with it.
It turns out that now our working life is completely integrated into our home life.
Although the
Yay, capitalism.
the blur filter was an unexpected little innovation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we're at the end of that. We have very few chapters left to go. Anything else you took from that other than that you think that Banks is overly harsh on young men who go to wars?
I wouldn't say Banks was. I said the women where he was
It was a
re-quoting.
line written by Banks. But...
Well, he's... I'm not sure. I don't think he believes in everything every character does.
Although it was the protagonist quoting another protagonist, it's pretty much the voice of the author at that point. And that is a quote that is attributed to Banks in isolation very often.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any other takeaways from that?
No.
No, you just...
It was a short one.
Just keen to see what happens next?
Yeah, I want to find out about the chair proper.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you're
I
gonna...
don't know. I feel like I'm going to be disappointed.
Okay, so listeners, just make a little note for yourself whether you think Sheridan will be disappointed or not by the next chapter. What do you think is going to happen in the next chapter?
I don't know.
No predictions?
No.
No guesses?
No.
But you think you're going to find out something about the chairmaker?
Well, you told me that I would by the end of the book. So
by the end of the book, there's a few more chapters after the next one.
Yeah. So
okay, cool. Well, hopefully Sheridan will struggle on past her missing earbuds, and we'll be back in your ears shortly to find out whether Sheridan thinks the chair drama was worth it. All right, thanks for listening, folks.
Bye.